Have you ever noticed that when it comes to human experience, things always tend to start out really inspiring, really incredible, almost like a high, and then it almost like falls apart. And the question is why? This happens to almost all human experience. For example, when it comes to relationships usually start out incredible. They're amazing, fresh, exciting. And then as time goes by, they start to get routine, boring, almost robotic. When it comes to eating food, when you start out a meal, every single bite is delectable. It's mouth-watering, it's delicious. Halfway through the meal, you're just eating. That same excitement that you once had just falls away, and the question is why? And this happens in life itself. When you're young, you have that energy, that excitement, the dreams, the ambition. And a lot of people, as they go through life, they start to lose that inspiration that they once had. And the question is, why did Hashem create us in a way that we start out with that inspiration, with that first stage of excitement, but then we have the second stage where that inspiration fades? And this actually connects to a very famous Gemara in Nida, Daf Lamed Amud Beis. The Gemara says that when you were a fetus, you learned Kol HaTorah Kula, all of Torah, and you saw reality through a crystal clear lens. A malach was teaching you everything. You were in this angelic state of being. But then right before you were born, the Gemara says something absolutely enigmatic, something which doesn't make any sense. It says right before you were born, the malach hit you on the mouth and you forgot everything. So the question is, why make you forget it? If you're going to go through this first stage of inspiration where you know everything, why make you forget it? But even more fundamentally, why teach it in the first place? If you're going to make him forget it, if you're going to forget it, why did you have to learn it in the first place? So the Arizal, the Ramchal, the Vilna Gaon, and many other Jewish thinkers explain one of the most fundamental and deep principles. They say that every single process has three stages. The first stage is a gift. It's that inspiration, it's that high, but it's not real, it's an illusion. It's not earned, it's not something which you invested in and created, it's just a gift. And that's why it has to fade away, so that you can go through that second stage, which is building it yourself, which is creating that light in the darkness, which is going through the stage where it's difficult, where it's hard, where you have to build it. And then there's the third stage, which is where you're back at that original first stage, but this time, it's real. This time you earned it. This time you put in your effort, it's a manifestation of yourself. And this time it's real. And you can just think of it, you need that first stage. You need to know the destination. You need to know the goal. If you don't know where you're aiming at, if you don't know the end point, the goal, the destination, you can't achieve anything. I mean, just think, for example, let's say you have the greatest archman in the entire world, a person who can hit any shot with a bow and arrow. But if you blindfold him, even if he's just a couple feet away from the target, if you blindfold him and start turning him around, he's not going to hit the target, because he has no idea where he's aiming. You need to know where you're aiming at if you're going to hit the target. It's a beautiful mashal, beautiful analogy. Just think about a father teaching a child to learn how to walk. When a father teaches a child to learn how to walk, the child, for the first time, is being lifted off of all fours, and for the first time, that child is walking on just 2 feet. And in that child's mind, it's ecstatic. Oh my gosh, like this is incredible, I can walk. But then, every single time the father teaches their child how to walk, what does the father do? The father lets go. And you can just imagine a child thinking that this is amazing, I can learn how to walk, and just when he feels excited, just when he feels like so close to his father or his mother, he feels betrayed. That father let him go, he falls to the floor. Why would he do that? And again, this happens, and again this happens, and every single time this child thinks he can walk, and thinks he's building such a close relationship with his father or mother, the father lets go. Why? Because eventually when the father lets go, the child won't fall. Eventually the child will learn how to walk and will realize retroactively that it is only because the father let go that he was able to finally walk. The father was holding him so that the child can know what he's supposed to do. He can see the destination. But only once the father lets go into that second stage where you're by yourself and you have to build it yourself, only then can the child learn how to walk. And this is really how the Vilna Gaon explains the Gemara Nida and Daf Lamed Amud Beis so beautifully. he says that when you were learning Kol HaTorah Kula, it doesn't mean you were learning Chumash and Rashi. It means that you were learning your Torah. You were seeing reality with a crystal clear lens, but we're also seeing everything that you were supposed to become in your lifetime. Your Torah, your purpose, your tafkid, your potential, everything that you were meant to accomplish, which fits into the grander scheme of reality. But then you lost it because that's not real. You have to then come into this world to build it yourself, to choose it, to use your free will, your bechiras chafshis, to become and manifest who you're meant to become. And that's why the Vilna Gaon explains that you didn't forget everything you learned. You lost access to it. It's still there in your subconscious, but you don't have access to it. That's also why the Vilna Gaon explains that when you learn something deep, you don't have a feeling like you're learning something new. You have a feeling almost like you're recognizing it, almost like it's clicking. Why is it clicking? Because you did once learn it. You're just rediscovering what you already know. And that's why the Gemara in Bava Metzia Daf Vav Amud Beis, it says that if you try really hard to learn something and you don't succeed, yagati v'lo matzasi, we don't believe him. And if lo yagati matzasi, the person says, I didn't try hard and I succeeded, we also don't believe him. Only if he says yagati matzasi, I tried really hard and I succeeded. So the question is, why yagati matzasi? Metzia means something that you find. Why are we connecting succeeding in learning to finding a lost object? The Vilna Gaon explains because you are finding what was already inside you. You're not learning something new, you're relearning. You're doing chazara, you're resurfacing, you're rediscovering, and you're recognizing what was once there. And that's also why when it comes to education, you're not like a blank slate, like there's nothing in your mind. Your mind is tapped into reality. You're simply gaining access to what's deep within your own subconscious. And also this really opens up the whole concept of desire. Human desire, we desire things we've tasted. For example, you might desire pizza or chocolate or ice cream or steak because you've tasted it before. No one I know has a desire for kosher locusts or bugs, even though in Eastern countries those are delicacies. Because you've never tasted it before, that's disgusting. And if you think about it, do you have a desire for yabba glula? No, because it doesn't exist. I made it up. You can't desire something that you haven't tasted before. And the reason why you have such desires, for example, marriage. The Gemara says that before you were born, you and your wife were one neshama, just like Adam and Chava were one androgynous being, one essence before they were broken up into two. You and your wife before you were born were one neshama. You're broken up in this world. The reason you have such a desire and craving to recreate that oneness is because at root, that's you. And that's also why we have such a desire for wisdom, for greatness, for meaning, for purpose. Because when you were learning Kol HaTorah Kula, when you were being shown your purpose, you had it, you tasted it. And you lost that first stage of inspiration so that you can come into this world to create it and manifest it yourself. And that's why the Rambam famously gives the analogy that life is like walking through a forest at night in the rain when it's stormy and you can't see anything. And then there are flashes of lightning. And for a moment, everything is clear. You see reality. That's that moment of inspiration. But that lightning fades. And then you're left with the memory of that first stage of inspiration. Then you have to build your path, build your journey back to that original light. You have to build it in the darkness. So what we need to do is we need to grab hold of that stage of inspiration, that first stage, that gift. And then we have to learn to journey in that second stage to build it for ourselves. Because ultimately, we will get to that third stage, which is back to that original first stage, but this time it's real, this time it's earned, this time it's yours forever, because you built it yourself.